I've been building my own kingdom for everyone to see. It exists to keep me safe from harm, and it's intact to glorify me. Nobody helped me build this up. It was me and me alone. I've appointed myself as the king, and I've given myself the throne. But it turns out I'm no ruler, and I have no control. So I have decided to destroy it all. I'm tearing down the walls, kicking down the doors. Everything inside this kingdom is yours. 'Cause what I've made is worthless, and it cannot stand. Come and breathe some life into my empty, cold, dead hands. Down with the fickle king, away with this fantasy. You are the one I need. Death to the kingdom of me. Death to the kingdom of me. I should probably be frightened. This empire's all I know, but it always does more damage than good. I'm afraid it's gotta go. I know that I can't be trusted, 'cause I'm just a man. And if you hadn't given your life for me, a loser would be all that I am. You know they say just follow your heart. I'm afraid that's a load of trash. Your heart will take you down to deep, dark places where you feel like you'll never come back. So I'm coming out of the dark. This facade is... I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, I woke up feeling like it might be a good day to get it done. That's right. Oh, the stadium is just like my second house. Now I'm two-tone talking, they can't shut my mouth. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, 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 yeah. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to honor the memory of the 2024 Tennessee Titans. Right here on episode 137 of the Two Tone Talk by God pod. It's over.
It's over. We can begin the healing process. Time of death around 3:30 Central Time. Cause of death, terrible quarterback play, bad coaching, turnovers, penalties, horrendous special teams, lackluster defense. There's a lot of different things that led to the cause of death here. The Tennessee Titans season is over. And I got to be honest with you. Folks. I think this is the worst season I've ever sat through as a fan. I think this is the worst. I mean, you got to think. I understand we had some bad years with the Wisenhunt years. We had the whatever else, those years. You remember those years. But this, to me, when you consider what the expectations were, and I'm still not going to apologize for how high my expectations were in the summer. I mean, listen. Was I unrealistic? I don't think so. I had the ceiling for this team was 9-8. It's not like I was just sitting here going, oh, Super Bowl. No, I just thought, I had hope Will Levis would be good. I had hope that these additions to the roster would pay off. I had hope. I'm not going to apologize for that. Because I think if any other team, any other fan base, if your team had an offseason like the Titans did, I think you would have been hopeful and excited too. So I'm not going to apologize for being hopeful back during the summer. But that hope that we had and those expectations with the new head coach and everything, I think that's why this season will go down as the worst. Just gut punch after gut punch. I mean, think about it, guys. We started the season with the flick six against the Bears. I mean, you really can't start much worse than the Titans started the season with giving that game away in Chicago. I mean, that's just awful. Then you go against the Jets the next week, and the same thing happens. You give it away. Your quarterback does something stupid. Then Malik Willis, the guy you got rid of, comes in here and torches you in week 3. Then you go get destroyed by the Bills. Then you go get destroyed by the Lions. You get swept by Indianapolis. You get swept by Jacksonville. Got whooped by the Chargers. Destroyed by the Commanders. The Levis experiment failed miserably. No reason for optimism when it comes to Brian Callahan, and I even understand if you're a little bit skeptical of Ran Carthon. I get if you're skeptical of Amy Adams Strunk. There's just, it's been awful. It's been awful. The season ended yesterday. The 2024 Tennessee Titans season died yesterday, but I mean, it was put on life support in week 3. Sportacular said, do you trust Ran and Callahan with the number 1 pick? Both need to be fired if you're going to fire one of them, get a new GM coach and rebuild. I mean, as of right now, it's hard for me to trust Ran and Brian Callahan with the number 1 pick. It's hard. It's hard. They haven't given me reason to. This year, especially. And I agree. If you're going to fire one, you need to fire both, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. This has been awful. 8 games this season lost by more than 1 possession. In an NFL that is really designed for every game to be within a possession, somehow the Titans managed to lose 8 games by more than 1 possession. The stadium is 3/4 of the way empty. We are at rock bottom. There is one positive, and that is that we have secured the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. We're number 1 in the draft. And it begs a lot of questions. First of all, regarding the head coach, his job security. I have said time and time again over the last few weeks, I still think there's a chance Brian Callahan could be fired. I still think there's a chance Brian Callahan could be fired. But as I said here today, I think Brian Callahan's safe. I think Callahan's going to be the coach. And here's what I'm basing that on. This is what I'm basing that on. The manner with which the Titans handled the last 2 weeks of the season. If you watched that game yesterday, it was clear and obvious. I've said it before and I've said it, I'll say it again. No team is going to intentionally go out there and lose. Jeffrey Simmons is not going to go out there and miss tackles on purpose. Calvin Ridley's not going to drop passes on purpose. Will Levis, Mason Rudolph are not going to miss open guys on purpose. They don't have to do it on purpose. They do it like for real without any need of doing it on purpose. They just play bad normally. Just let them do what they do. But even though I don't believe the Titans were outright trying to lose yesterday, it was obvious that they were not putting their best foot forward, and they were not outright trying to win this game either. Okay? I mean, there were guys in the game that I didn't even know who they were. Rotating 2 quarterbacks. I mean, there were numerous instances in this game where you could see that Brian Callahan and the Titans were not very concerned with winning the game. When Nico Collins fumbles on the first drive of the game and Brian Callahan doesn't even bother to review it, that's not a team that's trying to win. Okay, when they have 1st and goal at the 1 and we don't even have Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat in the game, that's not a team that's trying to win. When you have the ball inside the 20, down by 10, on 4th and 2, you decide to kick a field goal to turn a 2-possession game. Well, they were down by 13. That's what it was. They were down by 13, so they chose to kick a field goal to turn a 2-possession game into a 2-possession game. That's not a team that's trying to win, okay? Now, here's why I say all of that. Calvin Ridley, he makes the catch to get over 1,000 yards and then just disappears. They took him out. The Titans treated this like a preseason game, rotating the quarterbacks in. That's what it felt like. It felt like a preseason game with the Texans backups in and the Titans just doing whatever they were doing. It felt like a backup, a preseason game. Now, why do I say all of that? I say all of that to say this. If you are Brian Callahan and you feel like you're coaching for your job, you would not do that. If you were Brian Callahan and you felt like you were coaching for your job, you would have reviewed that fumble by Nico Collins. You would have had Jeff Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat in the game on when the Texans had the ball on the goal line. You would have gone for it on 4th and 2 in the red zone down by 13. Like, if you're Brian Callahan and you feel like you're coaching for your job, you would not have handled this game or the Jacksonville game last week the way that you did. So, again, in the Oiler throwbacks at home against Houston, for Brian Callahan to be that obvious about the fact that, hey, we're not exactly trying to win this thing. We know we need to lose to at least have the number 2 pick in the draft at that point. Like, it's pretty obvious. And that's why I think Brian Callahan knows he's safe. Because if he felt like he was in danger, he would have been trying to win. He would have been putting more of an effort toward winning. I'm not saying the Titans got together before the game and said, hey guys, let's go lose. But some things are just obvious by watching. Okay? So I think Brian Callahan is safe. They have already scheduled a press conference with him at 1:30 today. And by the way, I'm going to be live streaming during that press conference right here live. The podcast is going to end, and then about 30 minutes later or 45 minutes later, that press conference is going to start, and I'm going to be live again. And I'm going to live stream that press conference with my thoughts on whatever it is he says at 1:30. You can just get ready for that. But I digress. I think Brian Callahan's safe. And that creates a dilemma for him going into 2025 because you got to get a quarterback in here that can win. And when you draft a rookie quarterback, it's not a guarantee that they're going to win. Kirk Cousins is not a guarantee to save your job. Justin Fields is not a guarantee to save your job. Sam Darnold's probably not even going to be available. If he is, he's going to be costing a lot. And did you watch Sam Darnold last night? I know he's had a good season, but he was horrible last night. It's going to be an interesting offseason. Going to be an interesting offseason. Then you get to Ran Carthon. A lot of rumors that Ran Carthon might be the one that's booted. I think that would be stupid. I think that would be stupid to fire Ran Carthon and only Ran Carthon. You either keep both or you fire both. In my opinion, Sportacular in the Super Chat said it earlier. You either keep both of them or you fire both of them. You do not keep one, fire the other. We have done this too many times where we've already had a head coach and then we bring in a GM and we gotta get them to get along, or we have a GM and then they bring in a head coach. Get both of them in at the same time. If you're going to fire Ran Carthon, just fire Brian Callahan too, and let's start the whole thing over. I view it as like the big three. Head coach, GM, quarterback. That's the big three right there. All right? So you already know you're getting a new quarterback. So if you're going to say, okay, we're getting a new quarterback and a new GM, you may as well complete the trifecta and get a new head coach too. The Super Chat, Focus One, said, what's a realistic trade back destination? I mean, the Giants are at 3. They could trade up. You trade back. I mean, if you trade back to 3 and give the Giants Cam Ward or Shador, whoever they want, yeah, that would mean you're probably not getting your quarterback because the Browns are probably going to take the other one. But you could trade back to 3 and still get Travis Hunter. You could trade back to 3 and still get Abdul Carter. And whatever you get from the Giants in the trade, that could be a way to go. We got a long way to go. My buddy Titans Rossi said, who would you choose if you had to? Sanders or Ward? Man, based on, I mean, I'm a little worried about the scouting reports about Shador Sanders. A lot of people just that don't believe that he is a first-round talent. I think the upside with Cam Ward is higher, but I'm kind of intrigued by just, I like Shador. I like what he does. I'm also concerned about his pocket presence, but I'm concerned about Cam Ward and some of the decisions he makes on the field too. So there's issues there, but I think the upside is higher with Ward. For Ran Carthon, I just want to say this. One more thing about him. It's not that I'm sitting here saying he's just done such a great job. It would be crazy to fire him. But I will say this, and I've mentioned this before. Everything he did last offseason, it was stuff that most of us wanted him to do. We cheered when he signed Calvin Ridley. We cheered when he traded for L'Jarius Sneed. We cheered when he signed Cheeto Wouzier and Lloyd Cushenberry. We cheered when he did all of these things. We cheered when he signed Tyler Boyd. We cheered when he spent all that money. A lot of people liked most of his draft picks over the last 2 years. So I just don't know about getting rid of Ran Carthon and only, of all people to get rid of. I will say this, as far as why this season was such a disaster, I put a lot more blame on Brian Callahan than I do Ran Carthon. I feel a lot more like Brian Callahan is responsible than Ran Carthon. But like I said, if you're going to fire one of them, just fire both of them and let's start the whole thing over. Don't halfway do it. If you're going to do it all the way. And it sure doesn't look like Callahan's going anywhere. So I don't think that Carthon should go anywhere either. If Ran is fired, I think it is going to back up the idea that people said about Amy after she fired Vrabel, and that is that she's too impulsive, and I know people get mad about that, but there's going to be some evidence of that. I think if she fires Ran, I think there are going to be people who say, "Wow, she just felt like somebody needed to be fired, and so she just fired the first person she could think of. She didn't want to fire Callahan because it's too soon, but she felt like she could get away with firing Ran. I don't think that would be good. Carthon's done a better job than Callahan. Now, we have the number one pick. Okay. Number one pick in the draft. That's the bright spot coming out of this. So, we got 3.5 months to talk about this, and we will. We will. Okay. But really, I said last week, I made a video about it, I talked about it on the pod, that if I were the Titans and you're up there, I think you take Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. But let me clarify something. I understand this is not as strong of a quarterback class. But if you get to April and you really like one of those guys, go for it. Go for it. On the flip side of that, though, if you get to April and you're just not feeling it, you're just not liking what you're seeing from Shedeur, you don't feel like you like what you see from Cam Ward, if that's the case, if you get to April and that's the case, I do not want to take a quarterback just because we feel like we have to, okay? Like, I don't want to just take a guy because, well, we're up here, I guess we should. No, I mean, at that point, yeah, I'm back on this train. I would rather take Aaron Rodgers for a year than to just draft a guy we don't believe in just cuz. Okay? I would rather go Travis Hunter. I would rather go Abdul Carter, trade back and get one of those guys, than to take a quarterback we don't believe in just cuz. It's Vince Young all over again, right? So, we'll see. Shedeur's an option, yes. Saw the trash bags on the head with the Shedeur thing on it. Shedeur saw it too. He liked it. I like Cam Ward, and that's an option. But you know what? I'm not going to fault the Titans if they decide they'd rather trade back, get some draft capital for the future, and go with an Aaron Rodgers for a year. I'm not going to fault them for that. Because if you get to April and you don't believe in either one of these guys, I don't want you to take them just cuz. I don't want you to take them just cuz. I've seen a lot of people throw out the name Jackson Dart, quarterback of Ole Miss, because he had a great bowl game the other night against Duke. Every time I think of Jackson Dart, I think of the game against Florida where he was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. And I don't know. I'm still, if your name's not Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward in this draft, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not even thinking about it. Quinn Ewers, no. Carson Beck, no. Jalen Milroe, no. Jackson Dart, no. None of that. Either Shedeur or Cam Ward or a veteran for a year. Like, that's what's going to have to be. Another question you've got to ask, though. Do we even trust Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan to pick the right person and to mold the right person into something? I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want to draft Cam Ward and then come in and the team suck and then Callahan gets fired and then here we go with Cam Ward having to already learn a new offense in year 2 because we went ahead and fired Brian Callahan 6 games into Cam Ward's rookie year. I don't want to do that like we did with Marcus Mariota, like we did with Will. Like, I just don't want to do that. That's why I lean more toward, if you're going to fire one, fire everybody and let's bring all the new people in together. Not one at a time. Bring them all in. It's a conflicting position, but I'm glad we have the number one pick. I'm glad we have the number one pick in the draft. It's something to hang your hat on after this miserable season. Now, I want to give some positivity here. I know this has been a miserable season, all right? I know. It's been awful. There's just no beating around the bush. It's been worse than I could have ever imagined. But one thing you got to realize, when you get outside of the Titans bubble, we are not the only fan base feeling this way. How do you think the Browns feel today? How do you think the Raiders feel today? How do you think the Patriots feel? Like, there are a lot of teams, a lot of fan bases who swear their team's the worst, okay? And just look around at our own division, okay? Indianapolis Colts fans are not happy today. Nor should they be, because they're keeping Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. They already announced it last night. Okay, they are absolutely losing their minds in Indianapolis, and they went 8-9, right? Finished with a much better record than us, and their fan base is about to burn Lucas Oil Stadium to the ground, okay? The Jacksonville Jaguars, who were like that much better than us, they went 4-13 and announced that they're keeping Trent Baalke, the GM, who is the main source of their issues. He's like the number one guy to blame. They're letting Doug Peterson go, but they're keeping him. So Jaguars fans are in a complete uproar today. And once Houston gets obliterated by the Chargers in the playoffs, like I think they will, Houston fans ain't going to be happy either. They won the division by default. All right? So I say all of that to say, there are a lot of organizations who are in shambles today. Not like the Titans are bad and everybody else is so much better. No, there's a lot wrong with a lot of teams. Look at the records of the teams in the top 11 to 12. A bunch of 3-14s, a bunch of 4-13s. There are a lot of terrible teams in the league, okay? So, we're at the bottom, but we're at the bottom with a lot of teams. And it's interesting because last week I saw some comments that were made by Tiki Barber. You remember Tiki Barber? Running back for the Giants once upon a time. Great running back. He made some comments on a podcast or some sports show because a lot of Giants fans were mad that they beat the Colts last week and gave up their number one spot in the draft. And Tiki Barber just said, listen, you can get mad about wanting a quarterback all you want. But he said if you don't have the roster around them, then there's no point in taking a quarterback. You don't want to draft a quarterback and bring them into a bad situation where they have no chance to succeed. If your organization is not ready for a quarterback, you shouldn't draft a quarterback until you have enough talent. Okay, I get where he's coming from, and far be it from me to try to go against a guy like Tiki Barber who has played the game at such a high level. But I'll just say it gets complex for me because if you're the Titans, if you're the Browns, if you're the Giants, you're at the top of the draft, you need a quarterback. You're telling me you should pass on that? Like, I get where he's coming from, but also how many organizations in this league right now are in a good position to take a quarterback? Like, how many? The Giants are terrible. The Browns, awful. The Titans, awful. Jets, awful. Saints, awful. Panthers, actually a little better than awful, but still they were 4-13 or whatever. The Bears, terrible. I mean, there's so many bad teams. Even teams like the Dolphins, who were like a win away from making the playoffs, they're in shambles today. Tyreek Hill's leaving. If you are not like one of 6 or 7 organizations at the top, you are not in a position to do anything. And the teams that are always at the top of the draft are usually going to be teams who are not in a good position to take a young quarterback. Like Chicago. But there are glimmers of hope. Look at Washington. Last year, everybody thought Washington wouldn't be a good situation for a young quarterback, but looky. You get the right guy, and it'll become a good situation. You get a good coach, yes. Get a good coach, get the right quarterback, and it'll become a good situation. Nobody thought Houston was a good situation for C.J. Stroud, but if you draft the right guy that you believe in and you coach him well, he'll become the right guy. It'll become a good situation. So if the Titans are sitting there in April and they believe in Cam Ward or they believe in Shedeur Sanders enough that they want to take them with the number 1 pick, you go right ahead. Go on. Do it. I'm not going to argue with you. I did a whole video last week about why I thought it would be a good idea to draft one of these guys, unless you just blatantly don't think they're going to be any good. But now I feel like I can take a deep breath and just exhale, because this season for the Tennessee Titans is over. Finally. What a miserable season. Normally I would be depressed to see the end of the season roll around. But this year, I'm glad. I'm happy to see the season is over. I do want to say, just looking back at the game yesterday, guys, Will Levis was not good in this game at all. Mason Rudolph was not good. Can we stop arguing about these two guys? Neither one of them are starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL. Just stop. Stop. I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear any more suggestions that, well, if we just did this, then Will would be good. No, I'm sick of hearing it. Sick of hearing it. Neither one of these guys are starting caliber quarterbacks. They should not be treated or talked about as such. Calvin Ridley. Kudos to Calvin Ridley for passing 1,000 yards. It's one of the more impressive things he's done in his NFL career, because the fact he was able to get that done with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph throwing him the ball is pretty remarkable. Good for Calvin Ridley for finding a way to do that with those two guys throwing him the ball. On this offense, the fact that Calvin Ridley was able to find 1,000 yards this season is pretty remarkable. Tony Pollard, I mean, that's the thing. Two of our biggest free agent signings were Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard, and I thought they both delivered. The offensive line got better. They didn't get great, but they got better. And still, I mean, if you don't have the right guy at quarterback, if you don't have the right guy at head coach, if you don't have, if you don't have what you need in those areas, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So now we can officially look to the future. And I don't know what that future holds, guys. It's going to be, I'm actually refreshing X right now to see if there's any breaking news. We're an hour away from Brian Callahan. Let me just see here. No, nothing new. Nothing new. I expect Colt Anderson to be fired over these next few days. And that's, I mean, I don't want to believe that Rand's going to go, but a lot of rumors out there picking up steam. Real quick, I'll talk about some of the other games from yesterday, week 18. Hard to believe the regular season is over. You've got, well, the Ravens beat the Browns. The Browns are awful. Bengals beat the Steelers. The Bengals did their part, and I'm sure the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens are glad to see the Bengals not in the playoffs. Panthers beat the Falcons. Good way to end the season for the Panthers. A lot of momentum going into next year. The Falcons are just, what a disappointing year. The Bucks over the Saints. I mean, the Baker's played extremely well. Mike Evans has been great. That's kind of what's carried them. Patriots over the Bills. Thank you very much, Patriots, for winning this game. Thank you very much, Joe Milton, for delivering there for the Patriots and for the Titans. Patriots already fired Gerard Mayo. Already fired him. He's already out of there. Vrabel, heavy rumors of Vrabel to New England. Patriots beat the Bills. Colts over the Jags in overtime. Zaire Franklin's acting up after the game about Pat McAfee. Like, dude, you just beat the Jaguars in overtime in week 18 in the finale because you're going home after this. Like, let's take it easy, buddy. Commanders over the Cowboys 23-19. Our guy Marcus Mariota led a game-winning drive at the end of this game. What was Marcus's numbers? 15 of 18, 161, 2 touchdowns. Marcus doing a good job there in Washington. Eagles over the Giants 20-13. I honestly didn't even realize that game happened. Bears, Packers, 24-22. Hey, but good little ending to the season for the Bears to finally beat the Packers. Like, good for them. Maybe that's something they can carry into next year. Seahawks over the Rams. Tough for the Rams going into the playoffs. They've been playing kind of ugly lately, but Seahawks won. Seahawks, I think, are the only team to get to 10 wins and not make the playoffs. That's a bummer. Jets beat the Dolphins. Now, listen, for all of you Aaron Rodgers folks, I know last week I said I might be out on him because he played so bad against Buffalo, but hey, came back yesterday, 23 of 36, 274, 4 touchdowns and an interception against the Dolphins. That would be an improvement over what we've seen in Tennessee this year. For all of those people who wanted to know if the Chiefs beat the Broncos, who gets in? Well, you shouldn't have worried about it. The Broncos beat the Chiefs 38-0. No suspense there at all. Chargers beat the Raiders 34-20. Raiders are in a weird position quarterback-wise. Cardinals beat the 49ers 47-24. All right. And then last night on Sunday Night Football, Lions all over the Vikings 31-9. So now the Lions get the first round bye, and the Vikings have got to go on the road in week 1. Now, in an hour, Brian Callahan's going to take the podium, and I intend on live streaming my live reaction and thoughts to whatever Brian Callahan has to say in that press conference. I'm going to be here. That's the plan. In an hour, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be checking out what Callahan has to say, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts on it during and after. So be sure to come check that out. And this is the Two-Tone Talk by God Pod. And this week, we're going to have a ton of season in review, reflecting on the season stuff here on the channel, the Two-Tone Talk podcast channel. So be sure to get ready for that this week. God bless you, everybody. It's been a horrible season for the Titans, but it's been a great season for the Two-Tone Talk podcast. I appreciate you very much. God bless you, everybody. Two-Tone Talk podcast, staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. Have a good rest of your Monday. Tighten up. Bye.